Okay, time for a new video, and whether you are somebody new to my channel or you are returning to my channel to watch this video, it is greatly appreciated. As always, I'm filming this video in one go, so if I stumble over my words moving forwards, apologies about that, and also if the quality of this video is fairly poor as well, if there's any lag, anything like that at all, sadly it cannot be helped, and hopefully it is not too much of an issue for you. This is yet another Eurovision related video here on my channel, and I don't know whether I filmed a video similar to this in the past. If so, that old video is now irrelevant, and this is the more up-to-date one. Today I am going to be talking about the Big Five at the Eurovision Song Contest over the past decade, 2013 to Liverpool 2023, and I'm going to be working out which automatic qualifier has been my favourite over the past decade. Of course, the automatic qualifiers every year are the host nation, whichever country that is, of course, along with the UK, France, Spain, Germany and Italy. Now, I have a feeling that it's quite comfortably going to be Italy, but I've never really sat down and worked it out before, so that's what I'm going to do today. I have a post-it note here in which I'm going to be making a few notes, and of course you're very welcome to let me know your thoughts on any of the songs I mentioned today by leaving a comment. That's much appreciated. Leave a like, subscribe, share the video, all of that good stuff. It's nice to see. And without further ado, I'm just going to get straight into this. So let's go back to Malmö, which of course is next year's host city, but in 2013 that was the second time Malmö staged the ESC. So France was Amandine Bourgeois with L'Enfer et Moi. Let me do this here. 2013 France. Italy was Marco Mengoni, who of course was in Liverpool a few months ago as well, and that was L'Essenziale. Then we have Spain, which is ESDM with Contigo hasta el final, which is a really nice song that didn't do that well at all. I know what I need to do, and that is load up a document, and that will save me some time writing things down. But yes, that Spanish track, very, very nice indeed. Here we go, that's the one. Spain, yes, that's about there. The UK was Bonnie Tyler. An interesting choice, because Bonnie Tyler is a huge name, a huge star, but she hadn't had a hit in the UK or anywhere else for years. So the fact that the BBC internally chose her, a year after internally selecting Engelbert Humperdinck, that was a very, very odd choice. But the UK's entry that year, Believe in Me, not bad. It was just quite forgettable, I suppose, in terms of its execution. And then Germany had Cascada, a fairly big name, has had success in the UK, had a #1 single or two in the UK, and she had Glorious, which a lot of people criticised because it sounded like a Euphoria rip-off. Yes, there are some similarities, but I don't think they're that ultra similar, if you ask me. And to be honest, that German entry, I was very surprised at the time it didn't do better in the results. I really was. But now, a decade on, I'm actually not that surprised at all. For such an up-tempo number, for such a banger, it didn't really leave much of an impression whatsoever. So, yeah, Germany a bit of a flop in 2013. Expected at one point to challenge for the win in Malmö, and it never happened. So I'm just waiting for this spreadsheet to load up. It's taking an absolute age. But we have Marco Mengoni, ESDM, Amandine Bourgeois, who opened the final that year, Bonnie Tyler and Cascada. Now I need to do this, and I need to do this, and I need to do this. So yes, here we go. This is lovely stuff. My mega spreadsheet I'm looking at now. So Italy is my #5. Of 2013, if you were wondering. Spain is my #7. Yes, indeed. I always feel that's a bit of an underrated track. Lovely song, female lead singer, yellow dress, barefoot if I recall, and then she ran onto the secondary stage, and then there's that really touching moment, well I think it's a touching moment, where she touches the light, and then they all light up and move up towards the ceiling again. Yeah, a lovely, lovely song, quite folky in terms of its sound. And Italy was just a straightforward ballad, very similar to his entry this year. The UK 13, not bad, not bad. Germany 14, not bad, not bad. And then France is actually my last place. So, yeah, I've never been a huge fan of L'Enfer et Moi, but if you take a look at the split results from the 2013 final, France did really well with the juries and not very well at all with the public. And then how on earth they worked out the placing in the end for these countries, but France were right near the bottom anyway. So if we're going to give each country a score, with the lowest score being the best, Italy, I ought to make a note of this on perhaps another spreadsheet. I'm all over the place today, ladies and gentlemen. But Italy are going to get 1 point, Spain will get 2, the UK 3. Let's do this here. Ita, Spa, UK, France, and Germany. Yes, Germany. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There we go. Not off to a good start are the French. Anyway, let's move on to 2014, shall we? Bit of a rambling video already, but bear with me. Do I need this spreadsheet now? Yes, spreadsheet, post-it note. Yes, I'll keep it to one side. 2014 Copenhagen, here we go then. So, Spain are going to get the 1 point. That's Ruth Lorenzo with Dancing in the Rain. You may recall that the Spanish national final that year only had about 5 or 6 songs in it. And it seemed to be a straightforward battle between Ruth, who was on the X Factor here in the UK years ago, and a singer called Briquette. And she had a great song called Mass Run. I believe that's what the title was. Great song. Would have done well at Eurovision. And I believe Ruth came out on top on a tie-break situation in the Spanish national final. So very tense stuff. Both great songs. She went to Copenhagen, Ruth, and she belted it out. It was a great performance. Juries liked it, public not so much. Shocking stuff. Unsurprising stuff is the term that I really should be using. As for the next one, the UK is my number 3 of 2014. It was my winner at one point. This is Molly Spitton-Downes, who hasn't really done much since Eurovision, to be fair, with Children in the Universe. And to be honest, what I remember about her at Eurovision isn't so much her performance. She closed the final. But it was that really awkward moment in the green room, which you may recall, where Lisa Ronner was talking about cake, and Molly Spitton-Downes was just sitting there, not really having a damn clue what she was on about. Anyway, that's what I remember about her at Eurovision. The performance itself, not bad. The song, I remember it premiered on what's known as the BBC Red Button here in the UK. And I remember hearing it, seeing the performance when it premiered, and I thought, this is a pretty darn decent track. And at Eurovision, a lot of people seem to be loving it. And we were one of the favourites to win on the day of the final, and then we finished nowhere. And I think being on last was a bit damaging. Very similar to this year, it has to be said. But also, if you want to be really nitpicky about it, she looked as though she'd killed Aslan from the Chronicles of Narnia and was wearing his skin on stage. Wasn't the best look, but the song I think still holds up pretty well today. Maybe it's just me. I haven't listened to it in a while, but it's not a bad track from the UK at all over the past decade or so. Then we have, so that's Spain, the UK. Then it is Germany in 18th place. That was a wild card entry in the German selection. It was Elaiza, I believe, with Is It Right? And I think... No, that was 2015 when it was Andres Kummer. More on him in a minute. But yes, Is It Right is this sort of gentle, quite charming song. Female group. The lead singer's gone solo. I've heard some of her stuff over the past few years, I believe. Accordion as well. Not a bad track, but didn't really stand out much. So 3 points go to Germany. And then it is Italy. And that was Emma Marrone with La Mia Città. And I believe she won Sanremo the year before with a really good song called Non è l'inferno. And then she was internally selected in 2014. And she was given, or rather she had this song that she'd written or whatever, that just wasn't quite up to scratch, and she finished towards the bottom. And it's the weakest Italian entry, I believe, since they returned in 2011. Really, really disappointing. Has this sort of rocky edge to it. Doesn't leave much of an impression. And then France, I'm afraid, dear me, getting the 5 points again. That was Twin Twin with Moustache. Quite comical, very playful, colourful stuff. But on the whole, fairly messy. And all these years later, yes, maybe that low mark wasn't deserved, but I never expected this to do terribly well anyway. So there we go, a comical entry that fell a bit flat. We move on to 2015 in Vienna, and Italy is back on top here as my number 3 of the year. This is Il Volo with Grande Amore, great music video, recreating famous scenes from movies, Back to the Future for example. Great stuff, great voices, really successful trio. They were on last in the running order, won the public vote by a mile, didn't win overall because, would you believe it, the juries fancied Sweden instead. That sounds familiar. But anyway, this is a really, really good song. And it's not doing anything particularly original. It's just 3 guys with great voices belting out a rather simplistic, romantic-sounding tune. But it was very effective, and understandably, it was one of the big favourites to win, and ultimately they just came up short. And I should say my top 3 of the 2015 contest, Estonia, Norway, Italy. It's a very close thing between those 3 countries. Then we have, well, should I count Australia here? I don't think so. Australia were automatic qualifiers the year they debuted, but they haven't been since. So we'll gloss over Australia, who were my number 7 of 2015. And we move on to, oh dear, Germany, my number 17, 1 place higher than the year before. This was Anne-Sophie with Black Smoke, a really slinky, quite sophisticated sounding track. And the only reason she was at Eurovision is because Andreas Kummert with Heart of Stone, he won the German selection that year, but then stood on stage in front of everybody and said, actually, I can't be bothered to do this. And had he gone to Eurovision, I don't think he would have finished last with a big fat 0. He might not have been far away, but I don't think he would have received 0. This song by Anne-Sophie absolutely shouldn't have received 0. But then again, you look at the other songs in the 2015 final, where were the votes going to come from? I don't really know. But it's not a bad performance. It's not a bad track. Haven't listened to it for a while. So Germany get the 2 points. Then we have the UK. My number 19 of 2015. This is, of course, the legends themselves. Electro Velvet with Still in Love with You. This is sort of electro, swing. Oh my days. Again, I think this premiered on the BBC Red Button, and I remember watching it, listening to it, and thinking, Jesus wept almighty, this is atrocious. And then at Eurovision, I just thought it was an absolute embarrassment. I really did. I mean, we've had Scooch, we've had Daz Sampson, we've had real gems in the pantheon of UK music. But this was just taking the absolute biscuit. It was just an embarrassment to watch. And this is nothing against the 2 of them, male-female duo. It was just, even they must have thought, we are going to get very few marks here. It was just comical in all the wrong ways. And I have seen the performance back a couple of times since, obviously. It doesn't get any better. But it's my number 19 of the 2015 contest. I mean, dear, dear me. Anyway, oh yes, we move on to Spain, my number 21 of the 2015 contest. This was a bit of a flop. This was Edurne, who is married, I believe, to David De Gea, the Manchester United goalkeeper who's just left Man U, with Amanecer, which means dawn, I think. And this was written by a couple of Swedes and was expected to do very well. It's a very grand sounding track. She's waving her arms and the lights are moving with her. I don't have much to say about it. For a song that was tipped for success, it really wasn't the most impressive performance at all. Very, very forgettable if you ask me. And I don't think I've listened to the song in full for a long, long time. Which means, would you believe it, France at number 24, my least favourite of the automatic qualifiers, yet again, this time in 2015, getting the full 5 points. This is Lisa Angel. Is it Lisa Angel? Can't quite remember. With N'oubliez pas, which I think means don't forget. And this was second in the running order, which is not great, obviously. I thought this was staged fairly well, visually not bad, the imagery was pretty strong, vocals were strong as well, and in the final third, out came these guys who I think were banging drums. It's been ages since I saw it, but it's not a bad song. It was just obviously not going to get much love. It didn't stand out enough, and it was on very early in the running order, so the result came as no surprise to anybody. We move on, ladies and gentlemen, to 2016, a good year, and my winner, Spain. Yes, indeed, Spain get 1 point here, and this is, of course, Say Ye by Barret, and I don't really remember the Spanish national final that year. I don't think many songs were involved, but this is the one that came out on top, and she was on stage. I think she was just after Russia in the running order, not great. Russia were obviously going to do a lot better, and she was wearing, I think, this sort of metallic basketball vest thing, and they had this sort of neon theme to the backdrop as well, and there's that moment where she fake fell over, and there's this moment of silence. That didn't really work. I know the Netherlands did it as well that year, and towards the end there were these effects as well where you sort of saw two of the same person and what have you. You know if you've seen the performance. I have to say, after watching the performance at the time, I thought this has no chance now. Lots of people love this song, but it hasn't got a cat and house chance, because the performance fell flat for me. And although Spain is still my winner of the 2016 contest, it is by the narrowest of margins ahead of Italy. And this is one of my favourite Eurovision artists ever. Francesca Michelin, with no degree of separation. She didn't win Sanremo, Stadio did instead, but they said, actually, we don't want to do Eurovision. So Francesca stepped in. She's been in Sanremo since, was the runner-up a few years ago. She's conducted at Sanremo as well. She's released a whole bunch of albums. She's released a whole bunch of great songs. She's still quite young. Great musician, and I'd love to see her at Eurovision again. And this song, she was on stage, sort of surrounded by plants and things that were sort of floating in the air, balloons. She was holding an apple out, I think, at the end of the performance as well. It's all to do with the lyrics of the song, the theme of the song. It is what it is. I can't quite remember it, but it's a really, really lovely track. And I remember back in 2016, Spain was my winner, but this was really coming up on the rails. And if I was to update my rankings for every year of my lifetime, again, for the third time in my lifetime, this would probably be on top. I don't know. It is what it is. Let's move on, though. Getting the 3 points is France. This was Amir with Je Cherche, and this was France really turning a corner after years of so-so results. This was expected to do very well. Juries really liked it. Public liked it, but not quite as much. As a result, I think he finished 6th in the end, which was still really good for France at the time. It's my number 6 of the year. So France get the 3 points. Whoa-hey! They don't get 5 for a change. Hallelujah. Then we have Germany, my number 10 of the year. This is Jamie Lee Krivitz with Ghost, and this finished last. And I think one of the reasons this finished last is because of her outfit, which I know seems like such a trivial thing to mention. But she was in this, I think, blue skirt, and she had all of this stuff on her head. And I can't even remember what it was. But I know that she was a fan of, like, K-pop and all of that stuff. And that came through in her outfit, but it didn't match the song whatsoever. And the staging was fairly dull. Smoke machine, I think there were lasers as well, can't quite recall. It's not a bad track. I have to say, if I updated this ranking, I think Germany would be a bit lower. But I'm also not sure who would be above them. But there we are, which means it's the UK getting the 5 points for the first time here in 2016. This is Joe and Jake with You're Not Alone. This was not the song we should have sent. We went back to a national final in 2016 because the internal selections have been pretty woeful. And it was about 5 songs, and we had a singer, I think this was the year in question, we had a singer called Bianca with a song called Shine a Little Light. And that was super basic stuff, but it was the song we should have sent. And instead, we sent Joe and Jake instead. They'd been on The Voice. Okay, fair enough. The song, pretty so-so. At Eurovision, the backdrop had faces of lots of different people. I think Graham Norton was one of them. and there was a bit of pyro, and they were having a good time. We were on towards the end of the running order. I think we got 12 points from Malta, was it? The Maltese jury? Can't quite remember. But anyway, this is not a particularly memorable British entry. We can say that about many of our entries over the past 15 years or so. And Joe and Jake, since Eurovision, have done absolutely nothing. That I know about, anyway. They've done absolutely nothing of note. They have faded into the background, I'm afraid to say. We move on to 2017 in Kyiv, and my winner is Italy. And this is a clear winner, I have to say. Occidentali's Karma, Westerners' Karma, by the legend himself, Francesco Gabbani. We all know it. The dancing gorilla on stage, the man in the gorilla costume, and the colourful backdrop, and that great Sanremo performance with the orchestra as well. And I have to say, Eurovision, I've said it before on this channel, I'll say it again, for me, like with Spain the year before, the performance at Eurovision fell a bit flat. And I think it's because there wasn't an orchestra in Kyiv alongside Francesco, and it's almost as if the power and energy of the song vanished. And although I expected him to do very, very well, in the end, he sort of flopped a little bit, because this was seen as such a clear winner at one stage, and then Bulgaria came along, and Portugal and Moldova were suddenly in the top three, and all of that stuff. But yet, ultimately, this fell well short of expectations, and I imagine the Italian delegation were pretty miffed that he didn't challenge harder for the win. But anyway, great stuff. I listened to this song so much at the time. I still listen to it now. What a great, quirky track. We then have France. My number 6, again, this time in 2017. And this is, of course, Alma with Requiem. Last in the running order. Great backdrop here with the Eiffel Tower and the lights and everything. She was in this sort of short dress. She looked great, sounded pretty good, juries weren't so keen, public had this in the top 10, I believe. All in all, not a bad result. I feel as though that's a bit of a forgotten gem, actually. Then we have the UK. This is my number 9 of the 2017 contest. It's Lucy Jones, who was on the X Factor here in the UK once upon a time, with Never Give Up On You, co-written by the 2013 winner Emily de Forest. She was performing in this sort of gold dress, if I remember, surrounded by this seashell structure. And then there was pyro near the end. It was really beautifully staged. It really stood out. The juries did like it, but not as much as I thought. The public, of course, seeing quality, completely dismissed it. And in the end, we finished mid-table, which was still okay. It was a step in the right direction, but this deserved a bit more love, absolutely. Do I listen to this song today? Not so much, but it is a pretty solid entry from us. Then we have, well, it's Germany next. My number 23 of the 2017 contest. Talk about a bland, bland tune. This was Levina with Perfect Life. I think this was a wildcard entry or something at the time as well. There were comparisons to Titanium, and it does sound a little bit similar, but it is what it is. This was just so forgettable. Visually, nothing was happening at all on the backdrop. She was in this bland outfit as well. Really, really disappointing stuff from Germany. And then getting the 5 points here is Spain for the first time in this little video I'm doing. Spain is my last place of the 2017 final. And this, of course, was Manel Navarro with Do It For Your Lover, Do It For Your Lover, blah, 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 blah. They went for this sort of very summery theme, 2 proceedings. There was that moment where his voice broke. Oh, man. It was just really flat from start to finish. And of course there was controversy in the Spanish national selection. It should have been Mirella, was that her name? Oh my god, my memory is shot to pieces. But it should have been the runner-up, that's what I'm trying to say. Instead they sent this and finished last, and nobody was really surprised. We move on to 2018, and getting the top mark here of 1 is Germany. And this is Michael Schulze with You Let Me Walk Alone. And this is just an absolute gem of a track, very much in the mould of Ed Sheeran and what have you. And he got around the 2018 Lisbon stage. Of course, there was no LED screen, so he had this massive screen on stage with him that he just brought over from Germany, and photos of him and his dad, I believe. Really touching stuff. Nearly finished 3rd. Great, great song. Then we have France, which in my rankings finishing 6th for the 3rd year in a row. So seemingly France getting better as the years go by. This was Madame Monsieur with Merci. Great song with a story behind it, and everybody in the crowd doing that hand motion. Really, really nice. Public gave it a really low mark, to be honest with you. Juries were a bit more on side with it. But yeah, ultimately, this fell a bit short, which was a shame. It's a really sort of classy track, I would say. Really nice, very relaxing to listen to, and of course it's got that story behind it, that weight behind it. Then we have Italy, which is my number 11 of the 2018 contest. And this was Ermal and Fabrizio with Non mi avete fatto niente. And this is a song that was last in the running order, just as Italy were in 2015. And vocally pretty impressive. They start off together on stage and then they move over the bridges either side of the stage and then meet in the middle again. And I don't think anybody really expected this to do that well. But then they finished 3rd with the public and 5th, I think, overall. Really, really impressive. This was definitely very popular when Sanremo was taking place that year. I wasn't a huge fan at the time, but then I grew to appreciate it. No surprises there. And you'll remember on screen the lyrics popped up in different languages, and I think that probably helped this song finish where it did in the end. Getting the 4 points is the UK, my number 17 of 2018, and this was Surrey with Storm, and of course this is memorable for the Stage Invader, and the song itself, not that great, pretty basic. Vocally, not too bad. But Surrey, she's quite active on social media, I believe. She's still making music. And that's great to see. I think she was a very good ambassador for us. Of course, she was on stage with Loïc Notte and the Belgian team in 2015. And I think she was involved with Blanche as well the year before. So plenty of Eurovision experience before she sang for us. But unfortunately, I've never been a huge lover of the song, which means Spain get the full 5 points. This is my number 20 of the 2018 contest. This was the year they returned to Operación Triunfo, and it was Amaya and Alfred, who were lovers apparently at the time. I think that was pretty short-lived, I don't know. He was back in Benidorm Fest earlier this year, was it? And I think she's still making music and doing her thing as well. Maybe she'll be in Benidorm Fest next year, who knows. But anyway, this song, Tu Canción, Your Song, a ballad, 2nd in the running order. Nice, quite romantic, quite sweet, but ultimately nothing truly amazing. Moving on, rattling through this now. 2019, Spain is on top here. What a turnaround. This was La Venda, The Blindfold by Mickey. This was last in the running order, very colourful. They had that sort of house structure on stage, and then at one point that massive puppet, which added nothing to the performance whatsoever. That was a mistake having that, if you ask me. He was very casually dressed, quite energetic, really got the crowd going. Juries loathed this for some reason. Public liked it a bit more, but ultimately he finished near the bottom, which was a real shame, because this was a very cheerful track. Italy, my number 7, so just below Spain in my 2019 ranking. This is Mahmoud with Soldi, clap clap. Soldi meaning money. He's a big star, was at Eurovision again in Turin last year. This is a sort of rap type number. We don't usually get this sort of thing at Eurovision, but it was always expected to do well. He finished 2nd, juries liked it, which was nice to see, and it's worth saying at Sanremo that he was actually the least favourite out of the final 3 with the Italian public, and yet he still came out on top, and this was a huge hit all over Europe for a while. So, yeah, goes to show what the Italian public know. Anyway, like I said, he did come back last year with Brividi. Moving on, UK, France, where's Germany? So it's Germany next, my number 14 of the 2019 contest in Tel Aviv, and this was Sisters with Sister, not actually sisters. And I remember at the time, I left a comment on the live performance YouTube video of this song, saying something like, "Don't worry, every other country is sending the wrong song as well." And I think it's my most liked comment on any YouTube video ever. And I have to say, I do regret saying it now, because I actually started liking this song just before Eurovision took place, and I still like it now. It was on early in the running order, it was very simply staged, and I think they had a good time. They were very cheerful once they'd finished performing it, but I mean, everybody knew this wasn't going to do that well. You just know with some Eurovision songs that they are pretty much dead on arrival, and unfortunately this German song was, but I don't mind it. Then we have the UK getting 4 points here, my number 16 of the 2019 contest. This was Michael Rice with Bigger Than Us. The music video is not bad, and I started liking the song when the music video was released. And then at Eurovision I thought, Jesus, this is bland as all hell. It was just him, standing there looking pretty awkward, dressed very casually. And then he was joined by a group of musicians, one of whom is Saa-Lena, my 2002 winner, represented Estonia that year. And it was fairly colourful towards the end as well, started off in black and white pretty much. But this didn't stand out at all. I think we were between Norway and Iceland in the running order. Another one, dead on arrival. And then Michael Rice, after the contest, I think he started saying it's all political, it's because of Brexit, and I thought, well, that's you done with then, we move on. Which means France get the 5 points here, just below the UK actually, my number 17 of the 2019 contest. This is Bilal Hassani with Roi. This came up on the rails like you wouldn't believe. It was sort of expected to do reasonably well, and then the week of the contest, if I remember correctly, he was one of the favourites to win, and I thought, hang on a minute, what's that all about? I remember as well in 2018 Ireland, it was the same thing, expected to do really, really well on the day of the final, finished in mid-table, and that's what happened with this French entry as well. Bilal, nice guy, he was in this sort of white outfit, part of his stomach exposed. He had a deaf dancer on stage with him, and another dancer as well, and you had sort of newspaper articles on the backdrop and everything. I thought it was really nicely done. It's not a bad track at all. But again, it's one of those Eurovision entries that should have stood out more than it actually did, and I don't know why it didn't stand out more than it actually did, if you see what I mean. We move on. Let's do 2020, which of course was the cancelled contest, and I will include this in this video even though it never took place in real life. Germany are going to get the 1 point here. This is Ben Dolic with Violent Thing. This would have done so well had that Rotterdam contest gone ahead, and then of course a year later they sent Jendrik and completely went back down the other route. Why they did that I don't know, but this song here is evidence alone that Germany can send the goods if they want to. They just never really seem to. Great song, very catchy, big high note towards the end, lovely stuff. Then it's Italy. I should say Germany, my number 5 of the 2020 contest. Italy, my number 7. This would be higher if I re-ranked the songs. It is, of course, Diodato with Fai Rumore, and this was being sung from the balconies in Italy during the early stages of the pandemic. And he was there in Turin during one of the interval acts in the semi-final, I believe it was. Second semi-final. Really, really nice job. Great singer. Really gorgeous ballad. Maybe a bit on the forgettable side for some. But absolutely, people started saying, oh my god, this would have won the 2020 contest. People would have fallen in love with this. Juries would have eaten this up. I agree. What a great song. Still listen to it now. Then we have Italy, UK. Okay, so it's the UK next. My number 18 of the 2020 contest. This is My Last Breath by James Newman. Arguably stronger than his entry a year later, which was Embers. Music video is set in a snowy forest, from what I remember. Don't really have much to say about this track. It's another middle-of-the-road British entry that nobody really talks about these days, even though it's only been a few years. Then it is Spain, my number 21 of the 2020 contest, and this was Universo by Blas Canto, and his song a year later, if you ask me, is stronger. This was somewhat up-tempo. All I really remember about this is that everybody couldn't include the audio in their videos on YouTube because of copyright. That's all I really remember about this track, I'll be honest with you. He did perform it live, don't really remember that, and to be honest, I couldn't even tell you how the verses go. So, again, not the most memorable track. And then, of course, France, my number 22 of the 2020 contest. And this was Tom Leib with Mon Allié, The Best in Me. There he was at the Eiffel Tower, the only building in France. And this is schmaltzy stuff. I think John Lundvik co-wrote this, or am I just making that up? Anyway, there was an acoustic version of this song which wasn't bad. But it's one of those tunes that you just know wouldn't have done well at Eurovision. Even if the juries had been on board with this, the public mark would have been pretty crap, and he would have finished near the bottom. 3 more years to go, bear with me. 2021, my winner, getting 1 point, Italy, again. This is Maneskin with Zitti e Buoni. I've still got the newspaper cutting on my wardrobe next to me as well, saying congratulations, winners, blah blah blah. Great song. They've gone on to have a splendid career, released an album earlier this year. Victoria De Angelis, absolutely fantastic on the bass. All of them are fantastic, and I was really rooting for this song to win at the time, and that's exactly what happened. I was thrilled. Rock doing the business at Eurovision, and Italy finally winning for the 3rd time. What more can you say? My runner-up, as was the runner-up in real life as well, my number 2 of 2021, France. Barbara Pravi, voila. France going straight down the traditional route, and it worked. This was staged so well, just the spotlight, the sort of silhouette on the floor, and the birds as well at one stage, and then the camera swaying backwards and forwards at the end, and that big final note. Some people really didn't like this. I can understand why, but having seen the national final performance, I thought, wow, you know, juries are going to love this, and they did. And I think what was really impressive was that the public really liked this too. I was a bit dubious that the public were going to view this and think, nah, this is not my cup of tea. But actually, they were really on board with this. 2nd place in the end. Very, very impressive. And then we have, okay, Italy, France. Must be Spain next. Yes, it is. My number 8. That's pretty high of the 2021 contest. This is Voy a Quedarme by Blas Canto for Spain. I don't know why I've typed in 8 there. It should be 3. He had that big moon on stage. It's a very, very simple ballad. Vocals weren't bad, didn't stand out much, result was to be expected. Then it is the UK, 23 out of 26 or so in the 2021 contest. This was James Newman with Embers. I do like this, but I just don't love it very much at all. He had the big sort of styrofoam trumpets on stage with him. That was an interesting choice. He was in this long black jacket. That was an interesting choice. Did the song stand out? No. But should it have stood out? Yes. It just fell flat on its face for some reason, and I don't really know why. And then getting the 5 points, Germany. Well, what an absolute downgrade. How the hell can you send something as good as Violent Thing, and then I Don't Feel Hate 12 months later? What is the thinking there? What is the thinking? All due respect to Jendrik, he gave it his all. He wasn't really the problem, but the song was childish fair, and it was just too silly. I mean, sometimes you get silly songs at Eurovision, but they have something about them. I don't really know how to describe this, but they have something about them that just connects with people. Sort of like Give That Wolf a Banana, Mama Ch. You know, there's something about them that just connects with people. This was just an obviously really silly song that just didn't make any sort of impression whatsoever. We move on to last year in Turin. We are nearly there, and I've been talking for 40 minutes, so it's nearly time to shut up. 2022, getting 1 point is Spain, my number 3 of the year. This was Chanel with Slow Mo, sexy stuff. I know a lot of people have very strong opinions on this, but we saw it last year, we saw it this year. Female-driven pop bops can be adored by the juries as much as the public. The juries did like this one. The public liked this one. Spain's best result this century. And I don't know whether 10 years from now people will still be saying, my God, do you remember when Chanel performed Slow Mo? A little bit similar to when Cyprus performed in 2018. Do you remember that Fuego performance? Whether it will still be held in such high regard down the line, I don't know. But I really like this, and it's a great performance by a really decent musician. Then we have the UK, Sam Ryder, the legend himself, my number 5 of the 2022 contest, getting 2 points here. And yeah, what can you say? He's had a splendid career since. Great singer, really likeable. My brother doesn't like him though, perhaps because he's always really cheery. I don't know what it is. He was at Liverpool as well. Yeah, what more can you say? Spaceman came upon the rails. People started getting on board with it. Juries had this at number 1. Fantastic to see. And we very nearly won, but of course Ukraine put the kibosh on that. Then it's Italy, my number 9 of the 2022 contest. This was Mahmoud and Blanco with Brividi. The returning Mahmoud, already mentioned him earlier. This was fine. Mahmoud was alright. Blanco thought that he was in some sort of rave for parts of this song. I don't know what he was listening to. Vocally it could have been better. Visually it could have been a bit better. But not a bad song. Then it is France, my number 11 of the 2022 contest. And this was Alvan and Ahez with Fulen. Really nice. Green lighting, flames, smoke, the mysterious women, and then the guy bopping about for 3 minutes. This deserved a bit more love and fell really flat. I use that term again, but that's exactly what happened. This fell flat on its face. And I don't really know why. But it is what it is. And then getting the full 5 points is Germany. And this was... Who the hell represented Germany last year? It was Malik Harris with Rockstars. Well, that just goes to show you what a forgettable song it is, I suppose. I could barely remember the guy's name. He had this sort of living room set up on stage with him. Vocally not bad. It's an okay melody and everything. But again, you just know... When you hear a song like this, I don't know what it is, but a lot of Eurovision fans will surely agree with me here. The first time we heard this, we probably thought if this wins the German selection, it hasn't got much of a chance. That's exactly what happened. And that leaves this year getting 1 point. The top automatic qualifier for me, my number 7 of the year, Italy. You can see where this is going, can't you? Italy this year were represented by Marco Mengoni, returning again. Due Vite, beautiful, romantic, lovely ballad. He was in this sort of sparkly silver top and trousers on the secondary stage. He was very emotional near the end. Some people said this was overrated. I can understand why, but you knew the juries were going to love this, and the public, they weren't going to completely dismiss this whatsoever. He did really well, and that's my top automatic qualifier of this year. Spain is my number 9 of this year, and that was Blanca Paloma with Ella, this sort of new flamenco interesting sound that was going on. Great vocalist. Thought the national final performance was arguably better than her performance at Eurovision. I sort of went off the track just after this year's contest this past May, but still a really daring, interesting sounding tune that ultimately the public couldn't give an absolute flying crap about. Then it's the UK, my number 11 of the year, Mae Muller, I Wrote a Song. Exactly. She was last in the running order. Vocally, not good enough. But still not bad. It wasn't a car crash. It really wasn't, in my opinion. She's just released her album, or is about to release it. I'll definitely be checking that out. She's so likeable, enthusiastic, great ambassador for us. She was so active on social media. And then she was able to sort of take the mick out of herself because of her poor result in Liverpool. As long as next year we don't do the same thing again and go back to the dark old days, we need to keep pushing hard and get another Sam Ryder result or one better. Getting 4 points, my second least favourite automatic qualifier this year, excluding Ukraine, is France, my number 13 of the year. This was Lazaro with Évidemment, evidently. Should have done better. She looked fabulous on top of this plinth or whatever it was, and then you had the French flag made up with the lights behind her and the falling rain pyrotechnics. This looked really good, sounded pretty good. She really went for it with that big note. The public just weren't keen. Juries a little bit more so. We've seen it quite a few times over the past decade. France having songs that the public do like, but then they just don't dish out that higher mark. I don't know what it is. And then Germany getting 5 points again. This was Lord of the Lost with Blood and Glitter, this sort of heavy metal sounding track, the striking outfits, flames, smoke, the sort of weird structure they had on stage that made up this sort of triangle thing. Look, good stuff. Went down a storm in the Eurovision Village from what I remember. Me and my friend really liked it. But they came last, and that was undeserved, in my opinion, absolutely. And a real shame that this sort of music just wasn't appreciated more by the public or the juries. But anyway, let's tot up the marks. Italy, 1-4, 1-2, 1-3, 2-2, 1-3, 1. That is 21 points for Italy. So Italy, my top automatic qualifier on 3, 4, 5 occasions. Spain, my top automatic qualifier on 1, 2, 3, 4 occasions, and finishing with a mark of 29 points. I should say Italy, never my least favourite automatic qualifier over the past decade. Spain, twice I think. The UK, never getting the 1 point, but coming last with 5 once. A score of 36 for the UK, bang average. Germany, on top twice and last for the past 3 years, dear me. They finished with a mark of 37. And then France, never on top, last a couple of times, I think 4 or 5 times, finishing with a mark of 42. So would you believe it, I don't even need to rearrange this. Italy is my favourite automatic qualifier, my favourite member of the Big Five over the past decade, with 21 points. Then it's Spain on 29, the UK on 36, Germany on 37, and France on 42. Feel free to do this yourself and let me know your scores in the comments. I am genuinely interested to know. But that is it. Apologies if the quality wasn't that great. I am finally going to finish drinking this Irish coffee. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Check out my other social media pages if you wish, link in the description. I'm stumbling over my words now. Take care. Bye for now.